Good morning. This is Faith at Faith and Books, and I just thought that since it's Jane Austen July, that I would do my ranking of the six major novels by Jane Austen. I'm mostly bouncing off of Kathy Grimm's ranking, which I just saw yesterday or the day before, maybe yesterday. Can't remember. But anyway, so this is sort of just in response to her. I actually agreed with a lot of what she said. So I just thought I'd do a quick ranking myself. Before I do that, though, I just have to show off again my beautiful bound volumes that my husband gave me years ago. And it's the paper is from 1833, but they've been rebound. But anyway, he actually bought this from a used book dealer in England. And is that sun? I'm going to move this. Sorry, hold on. Yeah, is that better? The sun's kind of. Wait, I better shift over. Hold on. There we go. The sun was kind of. Yeah, where is it? The sun. Oh well. Anyway, the sun's rising. I guess it's shining. Anyway, never mind about that. Okay, so I just wanted to show this off. It's really beautiful. I really appreciate it. Although the thing is, it's so delicate and everything. And look how tiny that print is. I can't. I don't want to read from it. So they're just for show, which is kind of sad. But I'm glad. I'm very glad I have them. Really. I was so pleased with that. Anyway, so I'm going to do my rankings, and let me just get started because I don't want to make this a very long video. I agree with Kathy Grimm. I'll link to hers, that Emma is my least favorite. And I feel disloyal saying this because it was my mother's favorite book. She loved Jane Austen, and this was her favorite. She thought it was incredibly well written, and she loved the plot and everything. My three major issues with Emma, and I also agree with Kathy Grimm, is that I just don't like Emma herself. She's this rich queen bee, and I never was a rich queen bee, and it's hard for me to relate to her, and I just never got over feeling slightly irritated by her. The other thing that maybe other people don't seem to mention is I also have problems with the character of Frank Churchill. He just doesn't seem whole to me. There's something incomplete, or I just don't get him. He doesn't come off the page for me the way other, Mr. Elton does, or Mr. Knightley, or, other characters in the book. Even Jane Fairfax comes off more developed, but Frank Churchill is just too odd. I find him odd, and so he bothers me as well. And then the last thing is that it's hard for me to get over the age difference between Mr. Knightley and Emma. I'm sorry, that's my air conditioner kicking on. It's too much of an age difference, and I literally cringed the first time I read the book, and Mr. Knightley is exclaiming over the fact that he once held her as a baby in his arms, and now they're getting married. That just creeped me out. So I just have a real issue with that. So because of those three elements, Emma just isn't my favorite, even though I acknowledge that it's well written. It just isn't my favorite. So I've read it several times. It's not like, like Kathy said, all of her novels are great, and I've read them all multiple times. But this is definitely my least favorite. And then it's hard, and like Kathy said, all the rest, I love them all. And ranking is just sort of this artificial way of organizing them. But, each and my rankings do change over time. Like, this is my ranking for right now, but it could change. But I think the next one I'm going to say is Northanger Abbey, even though I absolutely adore Northanger Abbey. It's laugh out loud funny. Henry Tilney is the most charming. He'd be the one I'd want to marry. I also saw Taking Tea with Catherine, and she ranked the heroes, and I agreed with her assessment of all the heroes. The Thorpes are just, they're a scream. They're so bad. They're so hideous. So I really, and I love the whole gothic spoof and the character of Catherine Morland. She's so good-willed, and she's so honest and direct and innocent, but she has a strong sense of integrity, and so she's very, very likable. So I love Northanger Abbey, and I'm just putting it as fifth because I don't know. I think it's a slighter novel, and that maybe it doesn't deal with sort of heavier issues, you know. So anyway, but I love it. The next one, I think, and my husband would probably just tell me that I'm just not being very, self-reflective or something, because I've read this one the most of all. And in fact, I have it in a nice edition, but I think someone made off with it, so I'll show this one. This is the Ignatius Critical Editions, Pride and Prejudice. And let's see if this is one that I got. No, I thought I had gotten it signed by the editor. But anyway, I love Pride and Prejudice. I've probably read it the most. If I was asked about my literary crush, it would be on Darcy. I don't think it is so much anymore, but for a long period, Darcy was pretty much my major literary crush. And it's funny, and it's so... I mean, the thing about this book is it's so ironic. Almost every sentence in it has some sort of double meaning, or there's some sort of ironic implication in it. It's really, really quite exquisite, and it's in its, what's the word I want? Like efficiency. It's not a particularly long novel, and yet I don't think there's any extraneous. I mean, she's cut out any extraneous words, but it really moves the story along. The pacing is quite good. Everything is. It's just a really exquisitely written novel, and I mean, there's a reason why it's the favorite, because she gets the romantic tension just right. She gets the character development just right. Yeah, I really like Pride and Prejudice. So this could be number one, but I'm just, right now, I feel a deeper appreciation for what some of these others offer. So I'm just arbitrarily putting it at number 4, but it could be number 1. So that's Pride and Prejudice. Then the next one, I think, would be Sense and Sensibility. I love Eleanor in this book. One of my favorite parts of the book is when Eleanor is having that conversation with Willoughby after everything has happened, and she learns to forgive him. And I just think that scene is a masterpiece. The contrast between Eleanor and Marianne, I don't really care for Marianne, but I don't know whether you're supposed to. But she does grow up, and Eleanor, Eleanor's just lovely. I really love Eleanor in this. Every time I reread it, I appreciate her character more. So yeah, Sense and Sensibility, a very, very good novel that, withstands, all of these novels withstand rereadings. You always get something more out of them. Every time I reread them, I get more out of them. So that would be number 4. Let's see, no wait, 6, 5, 4, 3. That would be number 3 in my ranking. Then the next one is Mansfield Park. Mansfield Park, when I first read it, it was my least favorite. I didn't get it. I thought Fanny Price was a prig. I didn't find her interesting. And then I read somebody's essay on it, and I thought, wow, I just didn't read this in the right mood, the right attitude. So I reread it, and the second time I read it, it came off as brilliant. I just think it's brilliant, and I've since reread it again. And I think, in my head, I compare this to The Scarlet Letter, even though Hester Prynne is in a very different situation and a different character. But it's really about integrity of someone who has no power. So Fanny Price has no power. She is a woman in a time when women have very little power. She is, the low man on the totem pole in terms of class, right? She's the poor relation that the rich relation is taken in, and they never let her forget that she's the low person on the totem pole, and that she should be grateful to them. And on top of that, she's a very humble, quiet person, and so even her personality isn't one that asserts itself. So she's really, really powerless. The only power she has, like Hester Prynne, is her integrity. And she has to cling to that through all sorts of almost unendurable hardship or pressure. And of course, it's more dramatic in Hester Prynne's situation. But here, in this quiet way, in this little domestic novel, we see her having to go through so much heartache and just dealing with people who are just have very shallow characters. And yet she's strong, and at the end she wins, and it's very satisfying. So I think Jane Austen was brilliant at creating a very sympathetic, good person, like genuinely good, quiet, kind of mousy person, and making her the hero, the heroine. So it's a brilliant, brilliant book. I highly, highly appreciate Mansfield Park now. I didn't get it the first time, but now I really do. But I'm going to say that my all-time favorite is Persuasion. And I think I like it because it's a little bit more mature. It's sadder. A lot of it is sadder, but that to me seems to give it a little bit more profundity. And I like the romantic tension is great in this. Whereas Mansfield Park, for instance, is it Edmund or Edward? I forget now. Edward. He's the nicest one, and she loves him, but it's not like he's this great romantic lead. Whereas Captain Wentworth is a great romantic lead. And I also like the whole, Jane Austen wasn't married, but this is kind of about marriage. Well, they're all about getting married, but we have, what's his name? Who is the admiral that comes to live at Kellynch? Oh, I'm reading the book too, and I can't. Admiral Croft. That his marriage, that's an example of what a good marriage should be, and that's what we want for Anne. So I love the character of Anne Elliot. Again, she's quiet, but she's strong. She's the most sensible. She has integrity. All around here, she's surrounded by people who just don't have integrity, and she does. And you're so happy that she winds up being happy in the end. It's just a lovely, lovely story. It's got all the great elements, but I think it's just in a more mature form. So that's my favorite, and this is the one I'm reading for Jane Austen July. So that's it. I didn't mean to go on so long. I was hoping to keep it to 10 minutes. Anyway, so that's my contribution to Jane Austen July, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.